Hey guys, Paul here once again, and today we are doing I guess, response video to the new Halloween trailer that came out a month ago. I'm really late on this, for sure, but I've had a lot of people asking my opinion on the new trailer, and so I thought I'd share it because I think it's also important for people to realize or understand everything that is wrong with this movie that's coming out. Now, whether the movie turns out to be a good movie or not, it doesn't matter. What matters is that it's fracturing even further the Halloween universe. It's destroying it. More so than Rob Zombie destroyed the Halloween franchise. And I say that because at least Rob Zombie's atrocity is in a separate universe. At least we could ignore that. But with what they're doing with this new movie, it's really sad because it's pretty much an FU to the fans who have recognized for years that Laurie Strode and Michael Myers are brother and sister. That's how it's always been. It's been established in part 2. To me, Laurie Strode and Michael Myers will always be brother and sister. I don't care. Let me start from the beginning. Let's discuss Friday the 13th for a second to put things into perspective. So, I love the Friday the 13th series. Always have. As a small child, I've loved those movies. I remember every Friday the 13th, the date when it would come up, Channel 11 here in New York would have a marathon, and I was always so excited to watch them. And they were censored, of course, for TV, so my parents, they didn't really care too much about it. It's just, even without the gore, they're fun monster movies. But what I love about those movies is that they're in chronological order, right? Part 2 picks up after the events of Part 1, so on and so forth, all the way up to Part 8. Part 5 is a sort of detour, certainly, but it's still within that universe. It has Tommy Jarvis from Part 4 in it. Some people, could say what they want about Part 5, but if you look at that movie within the context of its time period and where the franchise was at that time, it made sense to make Part 5 the way it came out. So, but certainly my least favorite of 1 through 8, of course, I don't recognize the New Line movies. I'm not even going to go on that tirade because I'll be here all day talking about Friday the 13th when we should be talking about Halloween. But my least favorite Friday movie is Jason Takes Manhattan, for sure. I mean, most people would agree that's one of the worst. When you're looking at parts 1 through 8, I think most people consider it the worst. 5 used to be the worst. But anyway, what I've always appreciated about those movies is that they were all confined within this single universe. Don't get me wrong, there's all kinds of plot holes and timeline problems with the movie, but they're all contained in one universe. And that's what I really loved about them. So when fans talk about the universe, they could reference movies before or after that within, the Paramount movies. And it all makes sense. It's all one singular, consistent universe. And that's, like I said, what I love about them. And then Adam Marcus comes along, does Jason Goes to Hell, and totally says, F you guys, I'm a better fan than the rest of you guys. I really know the direction of this series, so I'm going to kill off Jason and turn him into some body-hopping demon and all this stupid nonsense. I'm going to ignore the previous movies, and because he's a better fan than the rest of us, so he must know the direction of this series. And he has ties to Sean Cunningham because he's best friends with his son. And just to think, I keep getting, veering off topic even more, but it's just funny that I think I read that Adam Marcus is doing a documentary or something about Jason Goes to Hell. This guy will not just accept that his movie is awful. Dude, you spell Voorhees wrong in the movie, and you're this fan, and you have Jason shaving some guy's body because you thought it looked cool. Like, seriously. Clearly a kid made that movie, but anyway, he's gonna be making a documentary sort of justifying why his movie's so awesome. Give me a break. But anyway, like I said, parts 1 through 8 are the movies that matter. They're all consistent. They're all within the same universe. Plot holes, sure. Timeline issues, sure. But at least they're consistent. Nightmare on Elm Street is another very consistent series, 1 through 6. 7 is sort of like this weird experimental film, but 1 through 6 are pretty consistent. Not a big Nightmare fan. I don't hate them. I like them, certainly. But so I always appreciated that about those movies. Then we come to Texas Chainsaw, right? Wow. What a sloppy mess. What happened with that? Like, seriously. So you got the original from 1974, directed by Tobe Hooper, and then he makes a sequel. And he makes this during a time where making slasher movie horror spoofs was, a big deal. And so he made part 2, which is pretty much a comedy horror movie, no doubt. And so I don't really like that movie that much, but I still recognize it as a legitimate sequel to the first movie. No doubt about it. Whether I like a movie or not cannot undo it. For instance, just because I hate a movie doesn't mean it should be undone. It's there. It's done. We can't just ignore it and pretend it didn't happen. Imagine they did that with a Star Wars movie or a Marvel movie. There'd be riots in the streets. What if Kathleen Kennedy said, the fans really hate the prequels. We're just going to ignore them like they didn't happen. No, you can't do that. As much as some fans hate those movies, they're there. Can't be undone. You cannot bring up things again like the midichlorians, all that nonsense. Just don't bring it up again. But you can't just pretend these movies didn't happen. They're written in stone. They're part of canon. They're part of the universe. It's a done deal. Don't ignore them. Because they're there. You can never take them all back. It's just the way it is. But with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, this is going to be a lengthy video, just because I have so much to say, but with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you got part 1 and 2. It's like, alright, part 2 comes out. Don't like it that much, but it is a legitimate sequel to part 1. Then they do Leatherface Chainsaw 3, which really isn't a part 3. It's just a sort of retelling of the chainsaw legend or the chainsaw myth. So I really wish that would have been called the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Leatherface or something, not part 3. It's not really part of anything. It's not part of the original narrative. Then you got Next Generation. As much as people hate it, at least it's called the Next Generation. It's not called part 4 because it's not connected to the previous 3 films. So that's fine. If you're going to do it that way, fine. Don't connect it with the title to the previous movies. And then someone in Hollywood, some idiot out there, thought it would be a good idea to make another part 2 to the original Chainsaw movie, which came out to be Texas Chainsaw 3D. And this actually uses clips from the previous, the original movie, 1974. So now that franchise, that series, as fractured as it is, became even more fractured. Because now you have 2 timelines for the original movie. You have the original part 1 and 2, I think part 2. The original part 2 came out in 86. And now you had Texas Chainsaw, which came out like 5 years ago, whenever that was, which is another part 2. Who do they think they are that they could just try to rewrite an entire mythology, an entire, the narrative of that universe? When you start doing that, you're breaking it. You're taking a narrative, right, that's consistent, and then in order for it to go into another direction, you have to break it. So why would you do that? Who do you think you are that you can do that? Don't you know these movies have fans, people who are so invested in these movies? We've been talking about them for decades in forums and conventions and in casual movie discussions and debates and stuff, and you just throw this wrench into there and you just screw everything up. Like I said again, they don't do that with the Marvel movies. They don't do that with the Star Wars movies. Why is that? Do they think us horror fans have low standards? And you know what? I'm starting to believe they do. Because when I read the comments for the new Halloween trailer, all these people seem really excited about it. How could you be excited about destroying a narrative? Don't get me wrong. There's some bad Halloween movies from the original chronology. 4, 5, and 6. I never really liked the Jamie character. She's obnoxious, and there's something weird and creepy about a little girl acting like an adult. I don't know. That's just me personally. I've watched those movies a gajillion times growing up. I'm not gonna lie. As much as I really don't like them, but I watch them. They're part of the narrative, the original chronology. Then you get part 6, which really goes off the deep end with some of that really weird cult stuff. But at least I could understand what the writer was doing, because they kind of had to explain all the weird stuff from part 4 and 5, like the guy in black, the man in black. Anyway, so I could kind of understand it, but it just gets really bizarre with Michael Myers impregnating his niece and all this weird, bizarre stuff. So, but I don't think the answer is to just ignore a bad movie. It's there. It's been accepted by fans. It's part of the universe. Leave it. What you can do, if you're a creative writer, and most of these people aren't, this is why they just ignore previous movies, because they're not creative. They could do a soft reboot with another character from the franchise. People really like Michael Myers. They can do something. The answer isn't as simple as just ignoring bad movies. For instance, Iron Man 3 is considered one of the worst Marvel movies. Did they ignore it, pretend it didn't happen? No, it's still considered part of the MCU, for sure. It's still part of that story. It's still a chapter in that long-running 10-year story. So I think that's really important to understand. That's why I don't understand. I think some of these directors or producers, they don't see the bigger picture with the fans when it comes to horror movies. Like I said, they must think we have low standards and we don't care about narrative. We do. I mean, I do. Maybe a lot of them don't. Like I said, I've been reading the comments and reactions to that Halloween trailer, the new one, and I'm like, seriously, guys? Seriously? You think this isn't the right direction to break the franchise even further? I was discussing, somebody asked me in the comments of an unrelated video what my opinion was on the new Halloween movie coming out, and he said it very well. He said the Halloween franchise is losing its identity, and I thought to myself, that's the best way to describe it. If you can't talk about the franchise with any sort of certainty, what is there? It's so fractured. You got all these different timelines. We can't really talk about them, in a way that makes sense. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the same way. It's like, all right, are we going to talk about part 1 and 2, or are we going to talk about part 1 and Texas Chainsaw 3D? There's the two alternate, timelines there for Texas Chainsaw. It breaks up the discussion. It's just not easy to talk about these movies now. So you really gotta, I wish I can get into the head of maybe someone like John Carpenter, who was involved with this new Halloween 2018 movie. Like, is he aware of the fans? I know I keep saying that. I guess I'm very idealistic. I guess part of me wants to think that fans don't want to break the narrative, do not want to break the Halloween universe, but, maybe that's the cold reality, is that Halloween fans or horror fans don't care. They do not care. They want any movie with a guy in a white rubber mask. That's what they want. They don't care about the story anymore. So you got this new movie coming out later this year. And like I said, it takes place immediately after the original movie, 1978 movie. It includes Laurie Strode being played by Jamie Lee Curtis. Now, she already played Jamie Lee Curtis in the original Part 2. Don't they realize how confusing this is going to be for people who are trying to understand these movies? It's turned it into a convoluted mess. So when I have kids someday and I want them to watch Halloween, it's like, you gotta watch these great horror movies. Halloween, set the bar for slasher films, or they inspired a whole world of slasher films in the 80s, certainly. Friday the 13th, which opened up the floodgates, was inspired by Halloween, of course. So I tell my kid, gotta watch Halloween. So now he has to decide which Halloween. 1978 Halloween, 2007 Halloween, or 2018 Halloween. Now, what if he goes to 2018 Halloween? He might think that's the latest remake, but it's not a remake. It's a sequel to the original Halloween. Just to call it just Halloween is so incredibly confusing. So it's already bad enough that you're breaking the narrative even further, because right now, Halloween has 3 narratives, not including the remakes, the Rob Zombie remake. So you got parts 1 through 6. You could disregard part 3. It's not really part of the same universe. It's sort of a side story. And then you have parts 1, 2, H2O, and Resurrection. 2 timelines there. I was not happy with H2O. That was the first time they really broke it, if you don't include part 3. Part 3 doesn't bother me because, like I said, it's not even within the same universe anyway. It doesn't have anything to do with Michael Myers. In fact, Michael Myers is a fictional character in part 3 because Tom Atkins is watching Halloween at a bar, I think, in part 3. So, but anyway, so you got that narrative, the original narrative, then you got the H2O narrative. Now we have another one, Halloween 1978 and Halloween 2018. So you got a sequel to the original with the same name as the original. Now, the original already has a sequel, which is the original Part 2. That will always be Part 2 to me. That will always be the sequel that matters. When I watched this trailer, and I don't remember exactly how it went, but one of the characters says that, it was just a myth, or it's just rumor that they were brother and sister, Laurie Strode and Michael Myers. That was a spit in the face to fans. For how many decades have we been told that these two were brother and sister? And now you're just going to say, everything you know, we're just going to throw it out. Just gonna throw it out. All these years of legacy, all these years of Halloween mythology in this universe, throwing it all out. We don't care what you think. We're gonna do it our way. I don't care if it's John Carpenter. I don't care if Nick I don't care who's involved with this movie. There's a right way to do things, and there's a wrong way to do things. I like consistency. Maybe they should really look at the Marvel movies and Star Wars movies, and you know, try to take some ideas from those movies. There's consistency there. Not all the Marvel movies are good. Now I'm talking about the current Marvel timeline, not like the ones before it that don't matter, that aren't connected with the new Disney movies. But don't they see how consistency works? That even if you have a bad movie, you pick up the pieces and you move on. You don't just ignore it. So yeah, this is a travesty for Halloween. When they announced that they were canceling the Friday the 13th remake because Rings did so bad, and Rings did so bad because it came out in friggin' January or February, and they want to know why it did bad. But anyway, I was excited. I was happy about it because I don't want another Friday the 13th remake. I want Friday the 13th Part 8. Part 9, I'm sorry. Friday 13th Part 9 is what I want. Something that follows the original narrative. You can't give up on 8 movies just because the last one sucked. You can't do that. And that's what these people do. They're lazy. They're creatively lazy. You can't just forget this stuff, guys. I'm really passionate about this. People are going to say they're just movies. Don't you have a life? I get that a lot. And man, my life is really busy, and this is why I haven't made this video sooner, because I do have a life. You know, I don't just think about this stuff when I'm lying in bed before I go to sleep. But it does come up. I do think about it, and I just wish that there was something fans could do. But like I said, I don't think fans care. You guys don't care. I've read the comments on the trailers. I've seen the reaction videos. Some of those people might not be fans or invested in this series anyway, but that's the interesting thing, is that regardless of how well this movie is, how well executed it is, I doubt it will be a decent movie, but it doesn't matter. It still breaks the timeline. It still breaks the universe. Why can't horror movies have a consistent universe? Why? The only ones that really had a long, consistent universe were Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street. But the other ones have been so broken. I'm talking about long franchises that have lasted for a number of years. See, that's the thing the 80s got right. They made sequels that made sense. They might have been bad, but they followed the previous movies. And nowadays, people just want to just destroy that. Why not bring back the Part 2, the Part 3? Why is it always some stupid subtitle? How would people know what order these movies go in anyway? For instance, maybe like a series like, I don't know, Pirates of the Caribbean, where all those movies have subtitles, but you wouldn't know what order they go in unless you've been following them or you look them up online. Why can't you just go back to Part 1, Pirates of the Caribbean Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, and just have a tagline like Friday the 13th did? Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives. Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood. I love that. You know where the movie fits in the timeline. Halloween is dead. Halloween is dead. I don't care if it's John Carpenter or whoever's involved with this movie. Doesn't mean a damn thing to me. You don't break a universe. These aren't standalone movies. It's not like I would never tell Rob Zombie how to make a movie that he wrote. It's his original idea, you know. I would never do that. It's his vision. But when you start tinkering with a well-established franchise or universe, then you got to be very careful. There are people invested in these movies, people who live for these movies, if you want to call it that, and just people who are just passionate about them. You can't just start tinkering things, say, I do what I want, I'm the director, it's my vision, screw you guys. That's pretty much what Rob Zombie did. That's pretty much what John Carpenter and this new director is doing. Screw you guys, we're going to do it our way. Yeah. But, can't really tinker with that stuff, you know? And it's, to me, Friday the 13th Part 1 through 8 are always going to be the movies that I go to. Halloween 1 through 6. If you want to be a really desperate fan, you could try to make Part 7 make sense. Saying, I don't know, Laurie Strode faked her death or something. I don't freaking know. You could, if you want to try to squeeze the Jamie narrative within H2O and Resurrection. I mean, we shouldn't have to do that, though. So, So it's a sad day in the world of horror movies because I guess these studios think we have low standards and we don't care about things like consistency and chronology and just legend, canon, right? Now it's broken. It's so broken. And I don't know, guys. I really wish I could see another Halloween Part 7 that includes the Jamie timeline, because that's where it was going. I really wish I could see a... well, you know what? That's the interesting thing. John Carpenter, if you cared so much, you should have came back to the franchise if you thought that it was going in the wrong direction before they made 4, 5, and 6. I mean, I don't want to say 4 because he would know by that point, but if he saw Part 5 and said, wow, this series is getting really derailed, I better get back in here and put it on a straight path. You should have done that. It's a little too late now because you can't ignore movies. So yeah, guys, that's my rant. That's my feelings on this. This is really my feelings on horror franchises in general. They're just not taken seriously, like the Marvel or Star Wars movies. Sure, there's probably more money. Not probably, there is more money in the Disney franchises, Marvel and Star Wars, certainly. Maybe someday there'll be a renaissance and they'll go back to these original franchises and try to fix them. Anything's possible, because they're going to run out of ideas. I'd really love to see a Friday the 13th Part 9. I would love that. That's a dream come true movie right there. A movie that you could have a lot of fun with it too. You could have some guys cleaning out some sewers, or some homeless people, or some urban explorers in the sewers of Manhattan, and they come across his corpse and accidentally reanimate. There's so many cool, fun angles you can do with a Friday the 13th Part 9. Alright guys, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.